The air at Dodger Stadium was electric, but not in the way anyone expected. There was a buzz, yes, the usual roar of thousands gathering to witness a showdown on the diamond. But this was different. This was the night the world's most controversial couple walked into a sea of strangers, uninvited, and the reaction was immediate, visceral, unforgettable. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had arrived, and the moment they stepped into the stadium, the fans let them know they were not welcome. It started with a murmur, a ripple through the stands. Heads turned, phones lifted, whispers turned into gasps, and gasps into jeers. In those first seconds, you could feel the tension slice through the crowd like a knife. This was not just a baseball game. It had become a stage for drama far larger than any pitch or home run. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine it. The lights glinting off the polished floors, vendors hustling through the concourse, the smell of hot dogs and popcorn mixing with the fall evening air, and suddenly, all attention shifted. Every lens, every eye, every whisper turned to them. Some fans recognized them immediately. Others only realized who they were when the camera flashed or a voice shouted, "Is that them?" And then, louder and louder, the boos started. At first, it was a soft, almost polite hissing. But it escalated quickly, feeding on itself. A wave of sound rolled across the stands. "Uninvited. Get out." Some fans were shouting. Others laughed, turning the situation into something almost carnival-like, but with a sting that couldn't be ignored. What were they thinking? What compelled them to show up at a Dodgers game where they weren't invited, where their presence was not anticipated or requested? Was it a desire to be seen, to mingle with legends like Sandy Koufax and Magic Johnson, who occupied seats just ahead of them? Or was it a calculated public appearance meant to reclaim attention in a world that had begun to turn on them? We may never know their full reasoning, but the result was undeniable: chaos. And yet, Harry and Meghan attempted, at least initially, to remain composed. Harry smiled, a tight, controlled smile, scanning the crowd as if trying to assess whether they were about to erupt into fury. Meghan's posture was perfect, elegant, carefully maintained, her face betraying only the smallest flicker of unease. But in the stadium, composure is a fragile thing. Fans are unpredictable. Crowd psychology is a storm that gathers momentum without warning. And this storm was just beginning to build. Within minutes, the incident exploded beyond the confines of the stadium. Social media picked up every moment. Twitter was alive with commentary, live clips, slow-motion videos, reaction memes. Instagram Reels spun the story in under a minute, thousands of comments pouring in simultaneously. Even TikTok had its own interpretation, creating a frenzy of parodies that ranged from humorous to biting. The world was watching, and every angle presented a slightly different story. Some clips highlighted the initial boos. Others caught the looks exchanged between the couple and the stadium's security team. In every case, the underlying narrative was the same. Harry and Meghan had stepped into a hornet's nest, and it wasn't just the fans. They had underestimated the intensity of public opinion. Security, naturally, had to respond. What started as subtle, almost imperceptible movements, agents inching closer, watching the perimeter, guiding other VIP guests away, quickly became an overt, visible presence. Bodyguards surrounded the couple. Eyes scanned the crowd. Hands rested near earpieces, ready to communicate with colleagues stationed at strategic points throughout the stadium. There was tension in every step, every glance. The crowd felt it. The cameras felt it. And most importantly, Harry and Meghan felt it. One could almost see the internal calculation: when to smile, when to nod, when to attempt a graceful acknowledgement versus remaining silent. But public scrutiny doesn't allow for grace. It punishes hesitation and rewards spectacle. And the spectacle was only escalating. By the third inning, the stadium had shifted entirely. The game itself, the pitches, the swings, the fielding, had become almost secondary. Fans had their eyes on the couple, the spectacle unfolding in real time. When Meghan waved subtly to a familiar face or when Harry nodded at a nearby camera, the reaction was amplified. Whistles, jeers, clapping, laughter, it was all intertwined into a symphony of public sentiment that spoke louder than any broadcast announcer. This was not a friendly encounter. This was confrontation without a single punch thrown. and the tension had the unmistakable edge of anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks. And yet, despite the overt hostility, there were pockets of curiosity, almost admiration, mixed with disbelief. Some spectators documented every gesture with a sense of reverence, a compulsion to capture history, no matter how awkward it was. What would they say in the morning papers? What would the internet do with this footage? Was this the beginning of a new narrative or the culmination of years of public perception, boiling over in a single, vivid event? Questions like these swirled through the stadium, unanswered, almost rhetorical, feeding the crowd's energy. It was, in every sense, a live, breathing spectacle. What made this moment even more gripping was the presence of legendary figures just a few rows ahead. Sandy Koufax, the baseball icon whose name alone evokes nostalgia and reverence, and Magic Johnson, whose charisma and sportsmanship command respect, watched silently. They had seen fame, success, and public scrutiny, but this was a different dimension. Whispers among the press and insiders suggested that even the legends were shocked by the intensity of the crowd's reaction. How does one reconcile admiration for sports legends with the simultaneous scrutiny of global celebrities? How does a stadium full of thousands reconcile sportsmanship with spectacle, with real-time judgment of strangers on an unprecedented stage? These contradictions made the tension almost unbearable. Everyone present knew they were witnessing a moment that would be dissected endlessly. And then, in a shift almost imperceptible, the couple's demeanor began to crack. Harry's smile tightened. Meghan's hand brushed against her arm as if searching for some invisible reassurance. For all the planning, all the careful media coaching, nothing prepares anyone for thousands of voices united in vocal disapproval. The atmosphere shifted from curious and tense to almost electric hostility. The stakes were no longer symbolic, they were personal, and the crowd seemed to sense it, feeding off the energy, amplifying it with each passing minute. It was no longer a game, it was a public reckoning. The social media narrative, meanwhile, was snowballing. Fans posted side-by-side comparisons of Meghan and Harry's expressions from previous public appearances, highlighting contrasts in demeanor, attitude, even clothing choices. Analysts and commentators offered speculative takes. Was the couple trying too hard to appear casual? Was the public reaction warranted or disproportionate? Each clip, each thread, each meme contributed to a sense of urgency and magnified drama. In essence, what started as a simple appearance had morphed into a multifaceted cultural phenomenon, a spectacle for millions who were not even physically present at the stadium. As the innings passed, the spectacle reached new heights. Boos grew louder, chants started to form spontaneously, and the cameras couldn't keep up with the flurry of activity. Security measures increased, whispering instructions into earpieces, subtly guiding the couple along predefined paths. And the fans? They were relentless. Each cheer for the Dodgers, each gasp at a pitch, each shout aimed at the couple fed into a narrative that had evolved beyond sports and celebrity. It had become a real-time social experiment. It asked questions about entitlement, celebrity culture, and the power dynamics between public figures and the audience that watches them. And just as it seemed that the tension might plateau, that the spectacle had reached its zenith, something happened that no one saw coming. A sudden movement from the crowd, a ripple of energy, a collective gasp. Details are still emerging, but witnesses suggest that this moment shifted the balance irreversibly. The couple's attempt to navigate the situation, to remain poised, was about to collide with a force larger than either could control. The full-scale, unrestrained energy of thousands of fans, amplified by cameras, social media, and the sheer unpredictability of human reaction. And in that instant, the narrative shifted from tense to chaotic. The stadium, once a place of anticipation for home runs and strikeouts, had become a theater of tension, drama, and spectacle. It was no longer merely a question of attendance. It was a question of control, perception, and consequence. Every movement, every glance, every expression was magnified, scrutinized, and recorded. The couple was no longer part of the game, they were the game. And the crowd, for better or worse, had assumed the role of arbiter, jury, and audience simultaneously. The consequences of that night, both immediate and far-reaching, were only beginning to unfold. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The moment they stepped into the stadium, everything shifted. You could feel it in the air, tension that wrapped around every corner, every seat, every concession stand. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were not walking into a friendly crowd. They were stepping into a living, breathing storm. The initial murmurs had already erupted into audible discontent, and by the time they approached the front row seats, the jeers were unmistakable. People weren't whispering anymore, they were shouting. Boos bounced off the concrete walls, reverberating across the field, carrying with them a clear, unmistakable message: you are not welcome here. Why did it matter so much? Why did a couple, thousands of miles away from their usual stomping grounds, evoke such a reaction at a baseball game? Think about it. The Dodgers weren't hosting a royal family event. They weren't even hosting a VIP night for international dignitaries. Fans had come to see pitchers duel, to cheer their team on, maybe to enjoy a hot dog or two. Instead, their attention was hijacked by the presence of two people whose public image had already been charged with controversy, scrutiny, and relentless media speculation. And it didn't matter that they were polite, that they were composed, that they hadn't done anything to the fans personally. The optics alone were enough to ignite a fire. The couple paused for a moment, as if taking a mental inventory of the chaos surrounding them. Harry scanned the crowd with a mixture of amusement and wariness. Meghan, flawless as ever in her style and posture, allowed only a flicker of concern to cross her features. They had faced paparazzi before, they had handled hostile press conferences and public criticism, but there was something different about this. This wasn't a newspaper headline or a television segment. They were in the eye of a hurricane, surrounded by thousands of fans whose judgment was immediate, loud, and impossible to escape. There was no escape. Every camera, every smartphone, every pair of eyes was locked on them, recording, sharing, judging, and they knew it. Fans in the nearby sections were on their feet, some leaning over railings to get a better view. "What are they doing here?" one shouted. "This isn't their place." Another waved their phone, capturing every gesture, framing it as proof for the social media feeds that were already buzzing. And as Harry and Meghan moved closer to their designated seats, the crowd's energy intensified. It wasn't just boos anymore. There were chants, loud and rhythmic, like a pulse driving through the stadium. "Go home. Go home." It started low, but soon the chant was joined by clapping and stomping, creating a wave of sound that could drown out the announcer's microphone. The stadium itself seemed to shift under the collective pressure of thousands of people united in vocal protest. Security moved with precision, forming a protective perimeter around the couple. Their faces were set, eyes sharp, bodies poised to intervene if the situation escalated. You could see the subtle signals, the nods and gestures, the way agents whispered into earpieces. Every move was calculated. But for Harry and Meghan, it was impossible not to feel the tension radiating from every direction. Every cheer for the Dodgers now felt like a backdrop to the ongoing drama. Every laugh, every gasp, every camera click became part of a story they hadn't scripted. And in real time, the story was spiraling beyond anyone's control. And yet, despite the tension, there was a strange interplay of curiosity and spectacle. Some fans weren't just angry, they were fascinated. What would the couple do next? Would they acknowledge the crowd? Would they retreat? Would they try to engage? Or would they sit silently, dignified but vulnerable? Each fan had their own theory, their own prediction, and every one of those predictions added to the swirling chaos. The stadium had become a theater, and Harry and Meghan were the uninvited actors forced onto its stage. The audience was merciless, and the script had been torn up before it even began. The cameras found them instantly. Every gesture, every nod, every glance was captured, magnified, and disseminated within seconds. Twitter lit up with live clips, one showing Harry smiling nervously, another showing Meghan tilting her head, responding to a loud shout from a nearby section. Instagram exploded with memes, some mocking, some incredulous. TikTok creators seized the moment, overlaying dramatic music on videos of the crowd's reaction. Within minutes, the narrative had escaped the confines of the stadium. Now, the world was watching, dissecting, and debating, not about the game, but about Harry and Meghan's audacity, their poise, their composure under pressure. And it was only the beginning. By the second inning, The energy had shifted from curious hostility to an almost tangible sense of outrage. The crowd's attention was fully monopolized by the couple. Every pitch, every swing, every scoreboard update was secondary. Even the announcers, trying to maintain the game's focus, could barely ignore the spectacle unfolding just rows away from their commentary box. Fans continued to shout, some throwing playful insults, others genuinely angry, as if the couple's mere presence challenged their ownership of the stadium, their cultural space. "We didn't invite them," someone yelled. "This isn't their party." And with every outburst, the tension thickened, layering frustration, disbelief, and excitement into a charged atmosphere. Meanwhile, the couple's body language subtly shifted. Harry, trying to maintain calm, adjusted his seating, leaned forward slightly, eyes darting to familiar faces among the crowd, hoping to gauge the severity of the situation. Meghan, ever composed, attempted a polite wave to a fan, but it was met with louder boos. The irony was stark. An act meant to acknowledge civility was interpreted as provocation. And in that instant, the delicate balance between dignity and chaos tipped further, pushing the situation toward a breaking point. The presence of celebrities just ahead, Sandy Koufax and Magic Johnson, only amplified the tension. The stadium recognized their proximity, the media cameras highlighting the legend's reactions. Sandy, historically calm and reserved, exchanged glances with Magic, who raised an eyebrow, his lips pressed together as if suppressing disbelief. It was a subtle acknowledgement of the surreal nature of the moment. Two global icons of sport witnessing a spectacle that transcended baseball. And for Harry and Meghan, it was a stark reminder that their actions were no longer in private spheres or controlled environments. They were performing under a microscope, observed by history, legend, and the relentless eyes of the public. But it wasn't just the fans who were unpredictable. Security, while composed, operated in a tense rhythm, constantly recalibrating. Every shout from the crowd required attention. Every wave of the camera needed assessment. Every movement of the couple was watched with intent. Their challenge was not just protection. It was navigation through a psychological battlefield where the line between safety and spectacle blurred. Every step they took had consequence. Every glance could be interpreted as defiance or fear. And every second, the audience responded, creating an almost cinematic interplay of action and reaction. Amid all this, the couple tried to stay composed. Harry attempted small smiles, nodding politely to well-behaved fans, trying to maintain an air of casual normalcy. Meghan's elegance never wavered. She sat, poised, her expressions carefully modulated to show grace under scrutiny. But humans are vulnerable to noise, to energy, to collective judgment, and the stadium's energy was overwhelming. The sheer intensity of thousands of unified opinions, expressed in sound, movement, and digital amplification, created a psychological pressure that few had ever experienced outside of carefully controlled public appearances. And the couple was directly in its path. And then, just as the third inning began, the situation escalated. A chant started spontaneously, a loud, rhythmic chorus of "Go home, go home," echoing off every wall and stairwell of the stadium. It wasn't polite. It wasn't curious. It was a statement of collective rejection, amplified by thousands of voices moving as one. The energy of the crowd was now almost physical, a force that pressed on the couple, their security, and even the press corps scrambling to capture every angle. Phones clicked, cameras whirred, and the echoes of disapproval became the soundtrack of the evening. And in that instant, it became clear, nothing could prepare them for what was coming next. The boos, the chants, the viral moment, it was just the beginning. Because in a stadium packed with thousands of fans, each with a phone, each with an opinion, each with an emotional stake, the story wasn't over. It was accelerating. Every step the couple took, every gesture, every flicker of emotion would be magnified, dissected, and shared. And the consequences? Unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unstoppable. But what happened the moment they tried to settle into their front row seats would escalate the drama in ways no one, not even security, could anticipate. The moment Harry and Meghan tried to settle into their front row seats, the stadium exploded, not in applause, not in excitement over the game, but in raw, unfiltered reaction. Within seconds, It became clear that this wasn't just about a couple showing up uninvited. It was about a spectacle, a cultural lightning strike that ignited the passions of thousands of Dodgers fans, and within minutes, the entire internet. The boos had escalated into chants. Chants became coordinated shouting. And as those in the stands pulled out phones, capturing every angle, posting snippets to social media, the event took on a life of its own, one that Harry and Meghan couldn't control. You have to understand the psychology of the crowd. One fan sees them, another notices a phone filming, and suddenly the energy spreads. It's contagious, a feedback loop of outrage and fascination. Did you see them? Someone whispers, a phone already recording. I can't believe they're here. Another fan shouts, this is insane. The murmurs build into audible anger. And the cameras, the omnipresent lens of social media, turn the stadium into a global theater. Within minutes, clips of Meghan and Harry appeared on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube live streams. Each post got thousands of views, reactions, and comments. The crowd wasn't just expressing their anger in the stadium anymore. They were broadcasting it to the world. Fans dissected every movement. A wave of speculation spread online. Why were they here? What were they thinking? Were they trying to mingle with celebrities? Were they seeking publicity? The comments poured in, some mocking, some incredulous, others analytical. Memes started emerging almost instantly. In one, Meghan was photoshopped into a Dodgers jersey holding a bat. In another, Harry appeared behind a security guard with exaggerated expressions of panic. The online world mirrored the stadium, amplifying the tension and making it impossible for the couple to retreat into anonymity. Every second in those seats became another story. It wasn't just the fans at the game. It was a global audience witnessing, judging, and reacting. Clips went viral in minutes, some edited with dramatic music, others slowed down to highlight Meghan's subtle eye roll or Harry's tight-lipped smile. Journalists across the globe began posting live updates, turning a local incident into international news. Headlines popped up in real time. Dodgers Stadium boos royal couple, or Harry and Meghan face public fury in LA. The situation was evolving into something bigger than anyone anticipated, a cultural spectacle where sports, celebrity, and public opinion collided in real time. And the fans in the stadium weren't just passive participants. They were performers in this unfolding narrative. Some waved signs, others clapped rhythmically in unison with chants, creating almost a theatrical environment of coordinated disapproval. One section started chanting, "Go home," over and over, another joined, and soon it became a stadium-wide refrain. Phones were raised higher, documenting every shout, every reaction, every subtle movement of the couple. Even casual spectators became content creators, broadcasting their own version of events to the world. The energy was electric, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Security tried to intervene subtly, guiding fans away when they leaned too far or shouted too directly, but the sheer volume of reaction was overwhelming. Harry and Meghan remained composed, at least outwardly, but you could see the tension building. Every glance at a fan, every nod, every shift in position was magnified by the stadium's charged energy. Even small gestures became symbolic. Harry adjusting his jacket, Meghan lightly brushing her hair, acknowledging a fan in an attempt to appear calm. Yet the crowd interpreted these gestures in ways that often amplified the drama. Social media amplified every second of the chaos. Within minutes, clips were edited, overlaid with music, and shared across multiple platforms. TikTok users made short videos with dramatic captions. The Royals at Dodgers game. Instagram stories documented every boo, every chant. Twitter threads broke down their movements in real time, discussing their body language, attire, and facial expressions. Even memes highlighting the irony of a royal couple being heckled at a baseball game went viral. One meme joked, "The only thing Harry can't escape is boos in LA." Another sarcastically suggested a Dodgers jersey for Meghan and a baseball glove for Harry, mocking their presence in the wrong context. The internet had turned a local event into a global conversation, a narrative they couldn't control. The fascinating part? It wasn't just anger, it was curiosity. Fans couldn't look away. People on social media debated endlessly. Were they arrogant? Were they brave? Were they just trying to be normal in an extraordinary life? And that debate fueled further engagement, making every second in those seats a moment of cultural scrutiny. Every movement, every expression, every gesture became content for consumption, critique, and analysis. Even the press covering the game had to navigate the tension. Live broadcasts cut between the field and the couple, commentators unable to ignore the scene unfolding. Camera operators zoomed in on facial expressions, hand gestures, and the subtle interactions with security. The narrative became almost cinematic, a royal couple trapped in a sea of boos, a crowd electrified by emotion, social media amplifying the spectacle globally. It was no longer just a baseball game. It was a psychological drama being performed in real time. And yet, amidst all this chaos, a strange sense of irony settled over the situation. The couple had experienced public scrutiny before: paparazzi, tabloid headlines, interviews gone wrong. But this was different. This was mass, real-time judgment from people who were directly in front of them, whose voices could fill the stadium and whose images could fill the world instantly. They were navigating an unprecedented public experiment in visibility, vulnerability, and exposure. Some fans tried to engage directly, shouting questions or opinions, but the noise was too overwhelming. The energy of the stadium was unpredictable, shifting in seconds from curiosity to anger, from mockery to fascination. Each wave of boos fed on the last, creating momentum that neither security nor the couple could dissipate. And while Harry and Meghan maintained composure, the tension was palpable. Their faces were carefully modulated, their smiles controlled, but the underlying anxiety was visible in subtle shifts of posture, small adjustments in seating, and micro-expressions that cameras immediately captured and magnified online. By the fourth inning, the couple had become more than spectators. They had become the story. Every pitch, every swing, every play on the field was now secondary to their presence, the crowd's reaction, and the viral amplification online. Social media exploded with commentary, analysis, and memes. Fans created side-by-side comparisons of this moment and previous public appearances, dissecting clothing, gestures, and facial expressions. Headlines propagated rapidly. Dodger fans outraged at Royals. Harry and Meghan face massive boos in LA. Royal couple overwhelmed by crowd energy. The situation was evolving beyond entertainment into a cultural event, a real-time examination of fame, public perception, and social media's power. And then came the tipping point. In the middle of the fifth inning, a particularly coordinated chant started near the left field section. "We didn't invite you. Go home." It spread like wildfire, picked up by other sections, amplified by smartphones capturing every second. The volume was deafening, the collective energy almost physical. Cameras focused on Harry's reaction, Meghan's subtle flinch, and the security team adjusting their positioning. Even the commentators paused, recognizing the intensity of the moment. The stadium had transformed into a theater of public judgment, a performance where the actors had no script and the audience had absolute control. And in that instant, it became clear: social media wasn't just documenting the event, it was dictating it. Every post, every clip, every meme fueled the energy in the stadium. Fans were performing for the cameras, performing for the online audience, performing for the couple themselves. The crowd had become both judge and storyteller, amplifying the tension and shaping the narrative in real time. And Harry and Meghan were trapped at the center, performers in a drama that had no rehearsal, no pause, and no escape. But what came next, when security had to make a decisive move, would escalate the situation beyond anything anyone could have predicted, turning a stadium spectacle into a full-blown confrontation and leaving both the couple and the fans stunned. The chants were relentless. The boos grew sharper. The stadium, once a place of celebration for America's pastime, had morphed into a battleground of public opinion. And right at the eye of the storm, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle remained seated, flanked by a team of highly trained security personnel who suddenly found themselves in a far more complex situation than they had ever anticipated. This wasn't a press event. It wasn't a red carpet. This was a live, unpredictable crowd, thousands strong, fueled by emotion, amplified by smartphones, and witnessing every subtle move in real time. Security immediately recognized the danger, not just physical, but psychological. The couple's presence alone was enough to incite reaction, but the combination of fan hostility, celebrity fascination, and the viral attention online created a volatile environment. The agents moved with precision, subtly repositioning themselves, forming protective arcs, whispering into earpieces. Every shift in the crowd's energy required constant recalibration. It was a choreography of vigilance, a silent dance meant to keep chaos at bay while allowing Harry and Meghan some semblance of dignity. But the crowd wasn't just shouting, they were reading every motion. Harry leaned forward slightly. Meghan adjusted her hair. Cameras caught these microexpressions instantly. Onlookers interpreted them as fear, as arrogance, as defiance. And the crowd responded accordingly. One group near the aisle began a synchronized chant. Another section waved their phones, recording clips for viral circulation. The tension escalated in real time. Security had to anticipate not only physical threats, but the social and psychological dynamics, which were arguably more dangerous in that moment. Every agent was alert, scanning faces, reading body language, adjusting positioning. "Eyes up, everyone," one whispered into the comms. "Keep them buffered. Don't engage unless necessary." A subtle hand gesture, and another agent moved to intercept a fan leaning too close to the front row railing. Every movement was intentional, calculated. And yet, no matter how precise their positioning, the unpredictability of thousands of individual reactions made control nearly impossible. Fans' energy became a force of its own, shifting and rising in waves, feeding off the reactions of those around them. Inside the stands, the air was thick with anticipation. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Phones were held higher. Camera flashes popped repeatedly. People craned their necks to see, to film, to witness history in motion. And as the couple tried to maintain composure, the very presence of security reinforced the stakes. Harry's smile tightened. Meghan's posture became even more deliberate. Every subtle gesture became a signal, read, interpreted, and responded to by the crowd and the cameras alike. The situation wasn't just tense, it was electric, like the charge before a storm breaks. Then came the first physical test of the perimeter. A fan leaned over too far, shouting, recording simultaneously. Security intercepted quickly, guiding the individual back. But the reaction was immediate. The crowd roared in approval, feeling validated by their vocal power, while simultaneously escalating the tension for everyone else. What started as individual shouts became a chorus. And suddenly, security was not just preventing physical intrusion. They were managing a theater of emotion, a collective reaction that could spiral out of control at any moment. Meanwhile, whispers among fans began to circulate. "Are they afraid?" one shouted. "Look at them. Even security is nervous." The crowd's energy became self-reinforcing. Each visible gesture by the couple or their security team fueled interpretation, and each interpretation fed the intensity of the response. This was no longer a game. It was a psychological standoff. Harry and Meghan's body language was under siege, their attempts at composure dissected and judged. Every subtle smile or glance could be read as arrogance, fear, defiance, or shame, depending on who was watching. And the fans, empowered by their collective presence and the viral potential of the moment, amplified every reading. Cameras zoomed in on the subtle interactions. Security's body positioning, their hands resting lightly on earpieces, eyes scanning, whispered commands, all became part of the narrative. The stadium was no longer just a physical space. It was a network of observation, reaction, and amplification. And the couple, for all their experience in public scrutiny, was navigating an environment far more unpredictable than any press event, red carpet, or official appearance. The crowd's power had shifted from spectatorship to performance, with Harry and Meghan as unwilling participants. And then, a sudden surge. A wave of fans from the upper section started a new chant, louder, more synchronized. "Go home. Go home." Security tensed instantly. Agents shifted positions, forming tighter arcs, adjusting to the threat's intensity. Harry's hand moved subtly, brushing against his jacket. Meghan's eyes flicked toward the aisle. Cameras captured it all, magnifying every subtle move. The viral implications were immediate. Clips of the chant, of the couple's reactions, of the security adjustments, were already online. The audience outside the stadium was growing in real time, amplifying the tension within it. It became clear the standoff wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. Every shout, every chant, every phone camera added pressure, forcing instantaneous reactions. Security's challenge was unprecedented. Maintain safety, protect dignity, anticipate escalation, all while being filmed and scrutinized by thousands inside and millions outside. The choreography was delicate, precise, and exhausting. One misstep could spark chaos, and the fans, empowered by observation, were testing every boundary. Amid the chaos, Harry and Meghan attempted subtle engagement. A polite nod here, a small wave there. But these gestures were read differently by different parts of the crowd. Some saw politeness. Others interpreted it as arrogance. Some cheered, others jeered. It was a paradoxical trap. Any gesture had consequences, and in a crowd this charged, consequences escalated quickly. By mid-game, the energy reached a fever pitch. Fans weren't just reacting. They were performing for cameras, for social media, for the global audience. Every shout was amplified online, every reaction discussed, every expression dissected. Security now had to consider not only immediate physical safety, but also the narrative being constructed in real time. The theater of observation was now as important as the actual stadium. And then, something unexpected happened. A fan made a sudden move, leaning too close to the front row. Security intercepted immediately, guiding them back. But the collective gasp from the crowd was deafening. Cameras zoomed in. Phones recorded. The internet watched. And in that moment, the theater of tension escalated further. Everyone in the stadium felt it. The precarious balance between controlled security and the potential for chaos had shifted. Harry and Meghan exchanged a brief glance. Neither smiled. Neither spoke. The realization was mutual. This wasn't a scenario they could gracefully navigate. The stadium's energy, the fans' power, and the viral potential of the moment had combined into a force greater than either of them. And security, trained for threats of physical nature, now had to contend with a different type of challenge. Human unpredictability, amplified by thousands of observers and millions more online. The minutes stretched. Every second carried weight. Every movement was scrutinized. Every reaction, real or imagined, became part of the spectacle. And yet, just when it seemed security had managed the immediate threat, another ripple started in the upper decks. A surge of chanting, synchronized and intentional. The standoff wasn't over. It was evolving, escalating, becoming more unpredictable with every passing heartbeat. And at that moment, the impossible became imminent. A scenario where not even security could prevent the escalation that was about to sweep through the stadium, transforming a tense situation into a moment of unforgettable confrontation. The stadium's energy had reached a boiling point, and there they were, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, sitting in the front row, just a few seats behind legends whose names evoke awe across generations, Sandy Koufax and Magic Johnson. It was a surreal sight. On one hand, you had two of baseball's greatest icons, dignified, calm, and accustomed to the attention that comes with their legendary status. On the other, a royal couple, uninvited, scrutinized, and visibly tense, facing thousands of fans whose mood had swung from curiosity to hostility. The contrast couldn't have been starker, and it only added to the drama unfolding in real time. As the couple settled, the first audible gasp swept through the crowd. "Look at them," someone shouted, pointing at Harry adjusting his jacket, trying to remain composed. Another fan added, "Even Sandy Koufax is staring." The press cameras immediately zoomed in, capturing every micro-expression, every subtle movement, amplifying the moment for the millions watching online. It was clear that this wasn't just another spectator event. This had become a theatrical spectacle, a collision of fame, power, and public scrutiny. Sandy Koufax, known for his stoic demeanor, sat with a calm yet incredulous gaze. His hands rested lightly on his knees, and though he said nothing, the raised eyebrows and subtle shake of the head told a story. Even he found the scene bizarre. Beside him, Magic Johnson, charismatic, larger than life, accustomed to performing under pressure, watched quietly, his lips pressed together, eyes narrowing slightly as he assessed the situation. Both men were legends, accustomed to being in the public eye, Yet the sheer audacity of the moment appeared to challenge even their composed presence. The contrast was striking. Icons who had mastered the limelight, observing a couple who were struggling to navigate it. The fans sensed this contrast and exploited it. Some began whispering to neighbors, pointing at the couple with glee. "The royals don't know where they are," one murmured. Even Magic's like, "What is happening?" Cameras captured Koufax's subtle reactions, the slight tightening of the jaw, the shifting of weight in his chair, while Magic's eyes flicked back and forth, assessing, anticipating. The stadium's energy had transformed into a wave of judgment, and it crashed directly onto the unprepared couple. Harry and Meghan tried small gestures to remain composed. Harry offered a subtle nod to the camera. Meghan lightly adjusted her hair. But each movement was dissected instantly by fans, press, and online audiences. "See that nod? Arrogance," one comment on social media read. "She's ignoring the crowd. Typical," another wrote. The couple's every micro-expression became a headline in itself, a meme in seconds, a viral clip within minutes. Every gesture, no matter how subtle, became amplified, misinterpreted, and shared endlessly. The pressure wasn't just emotional, it was tangible. Every cheer for the Dodgers now felt like a backdrop to the drama surrounding them. Every gasp at a swing or pitch became secondary to the crowd's focus on the Royals. Security moved subtly but intentionally, positioning themselves between the couple and the most vocal fans. Agents whispered into earpieces, scanning for any hint of escalation. Their presence was necessary, but it also highlighted the tension. The visual reminder that this was not just a game. This was a situation requiring careful management. Meanwhile, social media coverage reached unprecedented levels. Clips of Harry's tight-lipped smile, Meghan's subtle eye roll, and the crowd's synchronized chants flooded feeds. The juxtaposition of royal composure against fan fury was irresistible. Twitter threads dissected Koufax's reactions. TikTok creators overlaid dramatic music to amplify Magic Johnson's incredulous glance. The spectacle had transcended sports entirely. It had become a cultural phenomenon, a live experiment in fame, scrutiny, and public opinion. Inside the stadium, fans grew bolder. Those in proximity leaned over railings to capture better footage, shout louder, or engage with cameras. Phones held high became extensions of the crowd's collective voice, broadcasting anger, amusement, and disbelief simultaneously. The chanting intensified, organized almost as if premeditated. "Go home, go home," echoed across sections, met with the occasional supportive cheer from those documenting the spectacle. Every second reinforced the narrative. The royals were outsiders, intruding upon a space that the fans considered theirs, and they had no shield against the court of public opinion that now surrounded them. The couple's composure began to show cracks. Harry's jaw tightened, Meghan's hands clasped slightly in her lap, betraying tension. The front row, normally a seat of privilege and visibility, had become a stage of discomfort. Cameras focused not on the Dodgers' plays, but on the interaction between the royals, the security team, and the crowd. Each shot, each angle, each viral clip added layers to a story spiraling out of control. And yet, amidst this chaos, the legendary figures in front provided a silent commentary, their subtle expressions conveying disbelief, amusement, and incredulity. As the innings passed, the spectacle only grew. Fans in distant sections joined in, chanting, filming, and analyzing every subtle reaction. Social media platforms exploded with clips, memes comparing the royals to unprepared students in a classroom, video breakdowns of every gesture, speculative threads discussing their possible thoughts and strategies. The stadium had transformed from a venue of sport into a multi-layered narrative of celebrity scrutiny, crowd psychology, and viral content. It was a live drama, unscripted, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Security, fully aware of the growing intensity, adjusted their positions. Agents flanked the couple on both sides, eyes scanning constantly, earpieces alive with whispered communication. Every cheer, every shout, every wave of cameras was analyzed in real time, ensuring that no immediate threat could reach the couple. But the real challenge wasn't just physical, it was emotional, psychological. The energy in the stadium pressed against them, each chant, each boo, each click of a phone magnifying the pressure. Harry and Meghan were not just participants. They were symbols, and the crowd, along with the global online audience, dictated the narrative with relentless force. And then it happened. In the sixth inning, the crowd's coordinated chant shifted. It wasn't just "go home" anymore. Sections combined, creating a wall of synchronized sound. Security tensed visibly. Cameras zoomed in on the royals' reactions. Meghan's hand brushed against her cheek, a subtle but telling sign of stress. Harry's shoulders squared, a controlled response to mounting pressure. Fans captured every second, streaming it live, adding commentary, memes, and GIFs almost instantaneously. The spectacle had reached its apex. The stadium, the media, and the global audience were aligned in a moment of real-time scrutiny that neither the couple nor security could fully anticipate. The irony was palpable. Legendary figures sat just ahead, observing a scene that blurred the lines between celebrity, sports, and public judgment. Sandy Koufax's subtle head shake seemed to say, "I can't believe this is happening," while Magic Johnson's pursed lips hinted at amusement mingled with disbelief. The front-row spectacle had transcended entertainment. It was a cultural flashpoint. And for Harry and Meghan, it was a stark reminder that visibility, fame, and public life carry consequences no amount of planning can fully mitigate. But just when it seemed the tension might plateau, something happened in the crowd that no one expected. A surge from the lower sections, moving closer to the front row, combined with a ripple of chants so synchronized it sounded almost choreographed. Security immediately reacted, forming tighter protective arcs, but the momentum of the crowd was building faster than they could contain it. Phones flashed, cameras recorded, and the internet was already live-streaming every angle. The royals, in the eye of the storm, now faced a new level of intensity, a confrontation that had moved from verbal jeers to a coordinated display of collective power. And in that instant, it became clear, this wasn't just an uncomfortable front-row moment. This was the beginning of a front-row disaster, a spectacle so intense, so public, that it would be dissected, memed, and replayed across the world. Sandy Koufax and Magic Johnson watched, frozen in disbelief, as the stadium transformed into a theater of chaos. And Harry and Meghan? They were trapped at the center of it, every movement scrutinized, every glance amplified, every second magnified. But what came next? The reaction from both the couple and the fans in that critical moment would push the drama into uncharted territory, turning a tense spectacle into a viral, unforgettable confrontation that no one could have predicted. The sixth inning surge had shifted the atmosphere from tense to combustible. The stadium, already crackling with energy, became a wave of noise and motion, directed entirely at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. What had started as murmurs and gasps now evolved into an orchestrated outpouring of disdain, amplified by the stadium itself and the global gaze of social media. Fans didn't just boo, they jeered, shouted, clapped in unison, and filmed every subtle reaction. The royals were no longer observers at a baseball game. They had become the epicenter of a spectacle that consumed everyone's attention. "Look at them. They don't belong here," someone yelled from the upper deck, the voice carrying over the roar of the crowd. Within seconds, dozens of others picked it up, turning isolated frustration into coordinated disapproval. Boos bounced off the concrete walls, reverberating like a pulse across the stadium. Even fans seated far from the front row turned to watch, drawn in by the sheer magnitude of attention focused on the couple. The chants became rhythmic, almost like a drumbeat. "Go home, go home," sweeping through multiple sections and creating an almost physical wave of hostility. Harry and Meghan tried to maintain composure, but subtle signs of tension began to show. Harry shifted slightly in his seat, jaw tightening, eyes scanning the crowd as if to assess the threat level. Meghan's hands rested delicately in her lap, but the slight clenching of her fingers betrayed underlying stress. Every movement was instantly captured, every micro-expression magnified by cameras and live streams. Social media accounts exploded. Twitter threads dissected every gesture. Instagram stories highlighted their reactions, and TikTok creators overlaid dramatic music to heighten the emotional stakes. The entire world was watching, dissecting, and judging in real time. Security moved strategically, flanking the couple, eyes darting across the stands. hands ready at earpieces. Agents communicated in whispers, repositioning as fans leaned over railings or shouted closer. Each agent was hyper-aware that this was no ordinary crowd management situation. The boos and chants were more than noise. They were signals, indicators of energy levels, and potential escalation points. A single misstep could ignite chaos. But the crowd's reaction wasn't just loud. It was calculated, a performance in itself, enhanced by the knowledge that cameras captured every detail. Some fans went further than verbal protests. Phones were lifted high to record angles that could go viral. Shouts were coordinated, as if rehearsed, echoing through sections and amplified by the stadium acoustics. Even Sandy Koufax is looking at them, someone shouted, feeding off the collective energy. The crowd was not just expressing displeasure. They were narrating the story, dictating perception, and creating a spectacle that extended beyond the physical boundaries of the stadium. Every cheer for the Dodgers now carried a dual meaning: support for the team and amplification of the Royals' discomfort. The intensity of the crowd created a new set of pressures for the couple. They were visible, vulnerable, and trapped in front of thousands of fans who had turned the front row into a stage for judgment. Each subtle smile, nod, or shift in posture was interpreted and amplified. Social media users posted split-screen comparisons with previous public appearances, analyzing body language, posture, and facial expressions. Memes emerged instantaneously. Meghan adjusting her hair became a symbol of stress. Harry's tightened jaw a sign of silent defiance. The crowd and the cameras had created a loop. Each action fed the other, escalating tension, generating viral content, and reinforcing the spectacle. The legendary figures seated ahead of them, Sandy Koufax and Magic Johnson, observed quietly, their presence providing a stark contrast. Koufax's subtle shake of the head conveyed disbelief, while Magic's raised eyebrows hinted at restrained amusement. Both were legends accustomed to public attention, but even they seemed to recognize the unprecedented nature of the spectacle unfolding just a few rows behind. The energy, the coordination, and the intensity of the crowd had created a front-row experience unlike any sporting event they had ever witnessed. Security remained on high alert. Agents adjusted positions, formed tighter protective arcs, and whispered instructions into earpieces. Every movement from the crowd was assessed, and contingency plans were updated in real time. The challenge wasn't just preventing a physical escalation. It was managing the psychological energy in the stadium, controlling the narrative without escalating it further. But no matter how precise security's movements, the energy of thousands of fans, amplified by social media, was unpredictable, powerful, and relentless. The situation escalated further when some fans began shouting personal commentary, referencing prior controversies surrounding Harry and Meghan. These weren't just boos. They were layered with historical context, anger, and a sense of moral judgment. Each shout added fuel to the fire, feeding the energy in the stadium and amplifying the spectacle online. Clips captured phrases that went viral instantly. "Not welcome here. You don't belong. Go back to England." Each utterance was replayed, remixed, and spread across platforms, creating a feedback loop that intensified both the crowd's fervor and the Royals' tension. As the innings continued, the crowd's strategy became more apparent. Booing was not sporadic, it was deliberate. Sections coordinated chants, fans gestured in unison, and the entire stadium seemed to participate, even those seated far from the front row. The spectacle was amplified by cameras focusing on the couple, live broadcasts, and viral clips. Harry and Meghan's composure was tested continuously, every gesture analyzed, every expression interpreted in multiple ways. Social media commentary dissected everything, from Meghan's subtle glance at the scoreboard to Harry's posture adjustments. The crowd had created a narrative that extended far beyond the physical stadium. Yet amidst the chaos, Harry and Meghan attempted subtle engagement. A polite nod here, a small hand gesture there, intended as acknowledgement without confrontation. But in the charged atmosphere, these gestures were misread or magnified. Some fans cheered at the perceived acknowledgement, others booed harder, interpreting it as arrogance. The feedback loop grew. The more the couple responded, the more the crowd amplified the reaction, creating a cycle of tension, engagement, and amplification that seemed impossible to break. Social media intensified this cycle exponentially. Clips of Harry and Meghan's reactions were remixed, slowed down, and annotated. Fans posted real-time commentary and memes, some mocking, others sympathetic, all amplifying the stadium's energy. Every movement became content. Every facial expression became a headline. And the global audience consumed it voraciously, sharing opinions, speculating on intentions, and predicting what would happen next. The front-row drama had transcended a baseball game. It was now a worldwide event, an unpredictable theater of fame, scrutiny, and public judgment. And just when it seemed that the crowd had reached its peak, a sudden news surge began. A section in the lower decks started a chant so coordinated and loud that it rippled across the stadium. Security tensed visibly. Cameras zoomed in on Harry and Meghan, and the front-row disaster reached a new level. Phones captured every angle. Fans streamed live, creating hundreds of new posts every second. The tension was no longer just auditory or visual. It was almost physical, a wave of energy that pressed on the couple and their security team, testing every limit. The royals' subtle reactions were magnified. Meghan's fingers clutched slightly at her handbag. Harry's gaze darted toward the crowd, then to security. Every micro-expression was dissected, every gesture analyzed, every blink documented. The spectacle had escalated beyond anything planned or anticipated. Fans had become co-creators of the drama, and social media had ensured that nothing would be contained. What began as a baseball game had become a global stage for chaos, judgment, and viral spectacle. And then, just as the fifth and sixth innings seemed to merge into a relentless cycle of intensity, a moment occurred that no one had expected. A loud, coordinated vocal outburst from a section closest to the couple, amplified by fans filming and streaming. Security had to make a split-second decision: intervene directly or attempt to buffer the couple through the crowd's energy. Every agent tensed, every earpiece buzzed, and cameras caught the subtle shift in Harry and Meghan's composure. It was clear, this was no longer just a display of disapproval. It had become a front-row confrontation, a high-intensity, real-time interaction between celebrities, fans, and security. And what came next would push the situation to the brink, creating a scene that would be replayed, dissected, and debated around the world for weeks to come. By the seventh inning, the stadium had transformed into a maelstrom of tension, noise, and anticipation. The jeers and chants directed at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle weren't just audible, they were almost physical in their intensity. Every "go home" echoed with a resonance that seemed to push against the seats, the concrete, and the very air itself. Security had shifted into overdrive, their movements deliberate but strained, their eyes scanning, communicating, and predicting the next wave of chaos in real time. This was no longer a matter of passive crowd management. The safety, dignity, and composure of a royal couple were at stake, and the stakes were visible, felt, and amplified by thousands of fans and millions online. The surge that had begun in the lower decks now moved closer to the front row. Fans leaned over railings, phones raised high, shouting with synchronized precision. The chants grew louder, faster, almost rhythmic, and it was impossible to ignore the scale of collective energy. Security agents instinctively formed tighter protective arcs, moving in small, fluid shifts, anticipating every potential escalation. One agent signaled to another, subtle hand gestures conveying instructions: buffer the couple, contain the vocal wave, intercept any physical intrusion. Every micro-movement mattered. Harry and Meghan remained composed outwardly, but their body language began to betray the mounting pressure. Harry's jaw tightened, his hands rested tensely on his knees. Meghan's posture, normally immaculate, showed slight stiffness, her fingers lightly clutching the edge of her seat. Every movement, every glance, every blink was instantly magnified, captured by cameras, streamed live, and dissected by fans online. Social media became a second stadium, one where reactions, memes, and commentary amplified the intensity in real time. Every moment of tension inside the stadium was instantly multiplied globally. The crowd's energy, now coordinated, created a feedback loop. Booing and chanting fed viral content online. Online amplification, in turn, seemed to energize the stadium. Sections of fans began waving signs and smartphones, documenting and broadcasting simultaneously. Clips were immediately edited, captioned, and shared. Royals faced the fury of LA Dodgers fans. Harry and Meghan booed in front-row chaos. The narrative was no longer localized. It had become a global event, spreading to millions of viewers in real time. Security faced a dual challenge: contain the crowd physically and buffer the couple psychologically. Every loud chant, every phone flash, every wave of synchronized boos had to be assessed as a potential threat. Agents repositioned repeatedly, forming tighter arcs, whispering instructions, and subtly signaling colleagues to anticipate surges. The rhythm of the stadium became almost like a force of nature, unpredictable yet relentless, requiring constant adaptation. Fans in the stands had begun incorporating gestures into their chanting, clapping in unison, leaning forward in unison, coordinating in ways that made security's job exponentially harder. Some tried to engage directly, shouting pointed questions or mock commentary, testing the couple's composure and the effectiveness of the protective perimeter. Every shouted phrase was recorded, replayed, and streamed online, creating a multiplying effect. Social media users commented on every detail: the couple's reactions, the energy in the stadium, and the visual of security arcs. Every angle of tension was magnified. Harry and Meghan attempted subtle gestures of engagement, but in a stadium this charged, even small movements were magnified and misinterpreted. A polite nod became arrogance. A subtle hand adjustment became nervousness. The crowd's perception and the camera's magnification created a complex dynamic that was impossible to control. Security had to buffer the couple from not only physical escalation, but the psychological and social pressures of the spectacle itself.